Real quick, technically, this video is going to spoil 1000xRESIST, but as you'll find out soon enough, I really don't think that this video will sour your experience with it at all. You want to know what this video was originally gonna be? My previous working title was 1000xRESIST and the Shackles of Permanence. I was going to tie in nuclear semiotics, the quest to design warning messages to civilizations thousands of years into the future who will have no concept of our current language and symbols. I had a section I was really proud of where I likened the cold concrete of the game's environments to the emotionless physicality of nuclear waste sites. I had another script before that, about what parents owe to their children and vice versa. In it, I was going to explore the complicated relationship between Iris and her mother, about how cycles of expectations form and what it means to fulfill or betray the wishes of your parents. But both of those essays didn't sit right with me. Not because I said anything wrong, but because I felt like they were failing to capture what I wanted in a video about 1000xRESIST. They weren't doing the game the proper justice that I felt the game deserved. And so, failing to capture the brilliance of what the game was doing, I ultimately realized that it's impossible to write a video essay about 1000xRESIST. Let me try a plot summary first just to get it over with. 1000xRESIST is a 2024 narrative game by Canadian studio Sunset Visitor. You play as a clone named Watcher, who lives in a society called the Orchard 1,000 years after aliens, they're called occupants, released a plague that killed all of humanity. Well, actually, you play as a clone called Blue, who sees the memories of Watcher, who sees the memories of Iris, who is also the All-Mother, and who is also the person all clones are descended from. They can witness these memories through a process called the Communion, which is a sort of shared virtual reality that is able to replay memories. There are clones with specific functions such as Fixer, Knower, Healer, and my personal favorite, Bang Bang Fire. The game takes place in 2019, but also 2036, 2047, and also 30 years after, and also 1,000 years later than that. All of that is technically accurate, but I think you can see the problem. Which is not to say that the game is a jumbled mess. One of the game's greatest strengths is how cohesively the story is presented despite all that is going on, but there's nothing I can do to make it more digestible. So let me try something else. The game opens with a murder. You don't know any of the people involved, you don't know where they are, you don't know why one person is killing another. You watch it happen, then the game backs up and starts again properly with the cosmic background of how the world ended. By the end, you will have returned to this murder more than once. Each return you will know a little more about who was in the room. The first time you saw it, it was inscrutable. By the time you understand it, it has become almost everything. So what is in that scene when you finally have the context for it? It is a religious act because the people in the room are clones and one of them is, in their theology, a god. It is a political act because the killing is the end of an entire civilization's relationship to its founding myth. It is a familial act because the people in the room are made of the same body. It is also, somehow, the slow resolution of a story that began in a Vancouver apartment 10 centuries before any of these people were born. A story about a teenager and her mother and the things people leave their children. All of that is in the moment. All of that is the moment. The moment is not about any one of them. This is true of every moment in the game, not just the climaxes. The game is countless things at the same time, at every single timestamp, and the countless things do not take turns. There is no scene where it switches modes. There is no singular chapter that handles a singular theme. The religion is in the apartment is in the protest is in the apocalypse is in the bedroom of an 18-year-old who has not yet been told she is going to be alone for 1,000 years. The truth is that the game is built such that no single thread comes out clean. You pull on diaspora and the entire weave moves with it. You pull on religion and you are holding bureaucracy. You pull on a friendship and you are holding the founding scripture of a civilization. Most works that try to do this fail. Almost everything that tries to be about everything ends up being about nothing. It is truly remarkable storytelling that each of the themes it engages is treated with the focus of a work that is only about that one thing. The Hong Kong diaspora material is sharp enough to stand alongside the best post-2019 protest art. The mother-daughter relationship is rendered with the particularity of a chamber play. The depiction of being 18, angry, loved, and failing your parents in ways you cannot articulate, is, on its own, the most accurate depiction of being 18 I have encountered in any game. The theology of how a real person becomes a religion is laid out with the rigor of someone who has read serious work on cult formation. That none of them dilute the others is, in any medium, a craft achievement so rare, I cannot even think of another example. It is also the reason no video essay can hold it. Because a video essay, structurally, is the act of selection. You pick a thread, you pull on it for 15 minutes, you make the chaos legible, you hand the viewer a clean takeaway. In my previous essay, I spoke about 3 games with worlds that are overcome with infection, focusing on the through line about what you owe to a world where everyone else has already failed. I cannot do this with 1000xRESIST without lying. If I make the video essay about diaspora, I am leaving out the religion. If I make it about religion, I am leaving out the mothers. If I find a way to address all of them in a list, diaspora, religion, family, pandemic, adolescence, bureaucracy, individual agency, theology, preservation, I have made the list. I have not done the thing the game does, which is to hold all of them in a single moment of one teenager's life, while also holding everything that will happen to the human species for the next 1,000 years. I cannot hold all of that in one sentence. I am one person speaking one sentence at a time. That is the dead end. For a while, I treated it as a personal failure. I assumed that I was missing something, that the right thesis was around the corner, and that if I sat with the game long enough, I would find a way to crack it open. I now think the dead end is the point. The game is, in part, about what happens to a person when other people decide what your life means. It is about the way grief becomes religion, the way unfinished sentences become liturgies, the way good intentions applied to another person's memory across enough generations becomes a kind of cage. The whole game spends 10 hours mistrusting the gesture of reducing another person to a useful, transmissible story. When I sit at this desk, trying to figure out which thread to pull, which theme to emphasize, what the clean takeaway should be, I am performing, on a much smaller scale, the gesture the game spends 10 hours warning against. I think a video essay about 1000xRESIST is supposed to fail. I think failure is the message. I think the inability to reduce this game to one thing is the same achievement as the game succeeding at being so many things at once, and the only honest thing I can do is experience it. Instead of a thesis, I am left with a list of moments I cannot shake. The scenes between Iris and her mother, where you can see in a single exchange the entire history of how Hong Kong was lost, and what being 18 feels like, and what it means to refuse the love your parents are trying to give you in the wrong language. The strange weight of the communion when you are inside a memory you did not live but are somehow responsible for. The murder that opens the game, not exactly a murder, not exactly a mercy, and the way it accumulates meaning every time you return to it. I am left with a list of feelings I cannot put cleanly into words. The feeling of being given something that the people who gave it to you couldn't carry, and that you also do not know how to carry, and that you cannot put down. The feeling of uncertainty when you have to decide what you bring into the future and what of the past to be rid of. So, humbly, this is what I have. Not really a video essay, it is a hand reaching out, in the only form I have access to, and saying, I cannot tell you what 1000xRESIST is. I can tell you it changed something in me. I can tell you the changes are diffuse and unfinished and will probably be for years. I can tell you, in the only language I have, that whatever I would say about this game would be smaller than what the game gave me. 1000xRESIST is not meant to be reduced. It is meant to be felt.